the launch of the Donal Summer Cups book, Tales from the Summer Cups, created by the Letterkenny Community Heritage Group, to honour and tell some stories of the Donal Summer Cups that raged so wonderfully through Donal in the summers from, it seems, the late 30s perhaps onwards. But from our point of view, I suppose it's the mid-40s through to the early 80s. And I know that there's a lot of people here who participated in the Donal Summer Cups. I did not, but I know there are many who did. And I know that because I can hear them, or did hear them in the last few minutes, discussing games that were lost but that should have been won, the goals that should never have been given, that minutes of injury time that should never have happened, and various other such stories, but also stories of great players and great achievements too. And that, I think, is the joy of seeing so many people here, and we are so grateful for the number of people who have come. Also want to pay particular tribute to our councillors and the various other people who sponsored this publication. The Donegal County Council have been remarkably good to the Letterkenny Community Heritage Group, and particularly our local municipal councillors who have been just absolutely wonderful, and we do really, really appreciate that. It's going to be a relatively short event, you'll be glad to hear, so that you can get back to debating whether that goal should ever have stood or not. And to begin this evening, I'm going to call in a moment on Johnny Joe McCollum to say a few words. Johnny rang me and various other people in the committee, I think maybe mid-2020, you know, when he had ample time to be thinking of lots of other projects, to say he had this notion in his head about maybe putting some sort of a publication together to mark the Summer Cups. And I'm sure others said, yeah, that sounds grand, Johnny. But we all know the way Johnny Joe McCollum operates. We all know that if he gets an idea, it just doesn't lie there and fade away, it grows. And so it wasn't long before I was getting sent photographs and all sorts of things. And I think probably at least half the people in this room, I suspect, have had a phone call from the said Johnny Joe, badgering them for photographs, stories, all sorts of things. So this really is Johnny Joe's creation, and we're so grateful that that is the case. So, ladies and gentlemen, to kick us off, Johnny Joe McCollum. You're not going to sing, are you?
There's a good crowd here now, but if I sing, there might be many there. Now, as Brian said, around 2020, it was quiet, you know, we couldn't go out much. And I phoned Brian, and Brian's our secretary, and he phoned around the rest of the group. And about a week or so, Brian contacted me and said, Johnny, they all say go ahead, you know. But I couldn't have done it, the book, without the help of Brian and Charlie Grant. And I would like to thank them two men. And I couldn't have done it without people around Donegal sending photographs and stories. Derry, Strabane, Lifford, Kerry Key, Ramelton, Milford, Balbuffet. I can't think of anybody else now, but I know they'll be all on the book anyhow. And as Brian says, thank the councillors and anybody else that gave us sponsorship, you know, like private sponsorship, you know, they give it is. So I've heard so many stories, but I'll just tell you one story. There was a man telling me that, I think he's in the room tonight too, that Donegal got a very good team to play in the World Cup. They were the pick of the Donegal players. And anyhow, he says, at half time they were playing Carrickfinn Emeralds. And there's a programme in that book, Carrickfinn Emeralds, Jared Kellan from Burke gave it to me. But this was a Scotch team. I'm sure a lot of you would have heard about the Scotch boys coming over to play in the World Cup. And anyhow, I say at half time they were getting beat 4-0. And years ago the managers would be kind of fairly rough, he said, you know. So the manager came out at half time and he says, if we pull one or two back, he says, you know, we could be in this game yet. So he looked at the full back and he said to the full back, he says, you know, see that wee man in the wing, he says, can you not have him a kick? And the full back said to him, what did I tell you? He says, I cannot get at him. And I think you know who I'm going to say it was. It was Jimmy Johnson. You know, and that's not a story, that's the truth. They say the man's in the room, but I'm not mentioning his name, like, you know. But listen, thanks for all the stories and the photographs, and thanks for everybody coming here tonight. I'm really surprised with the turnout, but I'm delighted now. And thanks again.
Thank you very much, Johnny. I shall follow your lead and unwind this. Right, as I said, it's a fairly short ceremony, made slightly shorter by the fact that we were meant to have two guests launching the publication. And I know it's rather strange to launch a publication that you all already actually have in your hands, or most of you do have in your hands, but yeah, it's an informal sort of thing. Yeah, we were meant to have John Jobby Crossan along with Jim Sheridan. John Jobby Crossan unfortunately has been flu, so he can't be here this evening. So I'm guessing that's Finn Harps 1, Derry City 0. But it is a pity that, of course, John Jobby isn't here. A remarkable figure who, of course, played in the European Cup semi-final with Standard Liège when they were beaten by Real Madrid. Alfredo Di Stefano and Frank Puskás scored in that semi-final. And Real Madrid went on to the final, were beaten by Benfica, and Eusebio scored in the final. So that is the 93 of that era, isn't it? But we do have Jim Sheridan here. And Jim, of course, is a legend in the history of Finn Harps. I think I counted in Bartley Ramsey's book 309 appearances for Finn Harps in the league, just the league. I think I also counted, because I was doing a bit of counting earlier, 28 appearances in the FA Cup. Of course, the big appearance was in April 1974 when he captained Finn Harps to the FA League Cup victory over St Patrick's Athletic. And it was 14 years that he was at Finn Park, and a remarkable servant to Finn Park. And like many of you here, I'm sure, remember being at Finn Park on many occasions, watching him and many others. Some of them are possibly here too this evening, playing in that remarkable era for the Finn Harps. Of course, he started his footballing career at Rathmullen Celtic and then went to St Pat's, I think it was, in '68, and then a couple of years later I think it was to Finn Park. But what I did see on some other story was that his first senior game of football was when he was brought on as a substitute for Father Michael Sweeney, I think it was. The report said that Father Michael Sweeney was injured, not that he wasn't playing well. That's important to point out. And that was his first match at a senior level, and that was in the semi-final of the Milford Summer Cup, as I understand it. I don't actually know what happened in the match. I meant to ask him that earlier, but I never got the chance. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you're fed up listening to me. You can tell you little or nothing about football at that level. So, may I introduce the legend that is Jim Sheridan.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't consider myself to be a legend at all. I can assure you that. I'm still the same fella that left Rathmullen way back in 1964 and joined the Guards. I played a bit of football, and I looked up to people that are here tonight from Rathmullen who were great members of that team. And I think in particular of Father Woolley, Father Eddie and Patsy Sheridan. And they were the people that people like me had to displace if we wanted to get the game. My father was the manager, and I can assure you that there was no despite the fact that he was very familiar with me, I didn't get any on that team unless I was fit to be on it, or I was lucky to be on it. I mentioned there about Father Mick. That was exactly when I started to play, I suppose, serious football for Rathmullen. It was the Milford Cup, and it was the semi-final, and Father Mick was the right half back, Father Willie was centre half, and Teddy Blinny was left half. And I often asked myself, how the hell would a fellow like me manage to get onto that team? And that's the way it was. But Father Mick got hurt, so I played in the semi-final, and that was played against Letterkenny Rovers actually, and we beat Letterkenny in the semi-final, and the final we beat Kildrums. That was my introduction, I suppose, to Summer Cups. But I watched Summer Cups for years, and we're here to talk about Summer Cups. And basically, due to the fact that my father was the manager, I suppose, and player manager of Rathmullen for so many years, our house was a house where football was played, where football was spoken about all the time. And I can remember my late mother washing the jerseys, and there was no spin dryers, and there was no fancy washing machines, I can assure you, way back in the 40s and the 50s, or the 60s either. And that's the way it was. But they were a very successful team, Rathmullen, and I won't go too much into it because it's all in the book, and you can read it all. And it's great to see so many people here from other particular clubs tonight that we've interacted with down the years, played with them, played against them, and it's great to see them here. And this publication I just got a quick glance through it. I have never seen it either, but I have no doubt that a lot of credit, as we've heard, goes to Johnny and his committee, the Letterkenny Heritage Group, for putting this together. I know Johnny spoke to me at least 2 years ago about it, to see what I had in relation to it. But it turned out I had quite a lot, and a lot of people wouldn't realise this because my dad was an unusual individual. Anybody that knew him, and he had a diary, and in that diary was every match that Rathmullen Celtic played in about 10 years, from around, well, I think it was 57, or 67, so 57 to 67. He had it all recorded, and he had recorded the venue where the match was, what cup it was, what was the score, and the team. So basically all that was there, and it was all available. And that was certainly something that he was very meticulous about. And he was meticulous about everything, but he was particularly meticulous. And he definitely, when he was playing himself, I didn't see him play too often, but when he was playing himself, he was a tough enough not to say, I don't know what he was like, but anyway, he didn't have many passes, I'm told, anyway. But then again, I talked about that team that I got into at the beginning. That night, I think Patsy McCollum was the goalkeeper, right back was Father Eddie, and left back was Father Dan, centre, where the three half-backs were Father Mick Sweeney, Father Willie McMenamin, and Teddy Blinny. And I can tell you, they were a tough half-back. And you come up a bit further then, and you had the likes of John Patton, and Jim Kennedy, I think, was in that team as well. And Eddie McLaughlin may have been in it, I'm not sure. James Doherty probably was in it. And I'm not going to say that I can write them all off, because I'm an old man now and I kind of forget things. So that's the best I can. I got 10 or 11, I didn't do too badly. But anyway, I think that's a great publication when you see what work Johnny did. I'm aware as well of what amount of work that Johnny did in relation to this, because he would be on to me quite often and forwarding various stuff. But he had everything that I could give him, and he has everything that anybody here in this room could give him as well. So I have no doubt that this is a great publication. And really, the Summer Cups were serious stuff. And I did play for a lot of years in the League of Ireland, but I can tell you one thing, I probably got more satisfaction out of winning a cup or Milton in the final than I would anywhere else. And that's true, because for Milton, and I know there's great for Milton men here and friends of my own here as well, from Milton. And basically the thing about it was there was a bit of rivalry between Rathmullen and Milton. We were very close neighbours, and the Tony Cup had something very special, and if you won that, you didn't care if you won any other cup, but that's the way it was in the day, and it was all enjoyable. And definitely it was great, and I know that everybody here can talk about their own teams, whether it's Milford, Kerryart, Rebelton, Letterkenny, all those towns, Buncrana, and as well as that we went up playing in places like Cookstown, and we played in Cookstown and we played in Omagh. And in those particular tournaments in those days, if you were playing in Cookstown, as Father William and Patsy Sheridan and Father Eddie would tell you, basically you were really against senior players, because it was a close season. The Summer Cups were summer. There was no football in Northern Ireland. The league wasn't being played at that time. It was over. The season was closed. And the same with Dublin. And in Dublin, Rathmullen met Dublin United, which were all senior players and clubs in Dublin. And you know, and you read the book, it's probably not in this book, but having said that, I could produce figures that would tell you that we lost the semi-final in Oma to Dublin United. And Dublin United beat Rathmullen Selly because Dublin United got 2 corners and Rathmullen Selly got 1. And there was corner kicks. There was 2 matches were decided in Oma on corner kicks, which was a bit unfair in one way, but that's the way it was because they couldn't keep going. There were two replays and then went to corner kicks, so that was it. So we almost had a feather in our cap by beating that Dublin United team. But that's all history too. But that just gives you an idea how people were coming out. I was at that match, by the way, in Maville that Johnny's talking about, where Prewood United were playing against Carfin Emeralds, and they were all senior players from Scotland that came over here, and they did win the cup. They won the Maville Cup that year. And Jimmy Johnson was the man Johnny had mentioned about playing in the right wing, and he certainly could play, as we all know. And he did give their left back, who was a good friend of mine, a bit of a chasing, but he would give anybody a bit of a chasing. This was an international, Scots international later on, and he was a good player. But that's what you're up against. But there were great days, and you know, I'm sure there's so many stories that you all could tell from your various towns and villages all over the north of Donegal that would be on a similar vein as what I've been talking about here as far as Rathmullen was concerned. And I suppose, you know, later years when Father Willie and Patsy, no, Patsy hadn't retired at the time, Father Willie had for some reason. Father Willie was there all his life and Father Eddie too. But we played in the final of the Melton Cup sometime in the 60s, and we played against the Derry team in the final, and basically we had almost a complete local team from Thanet and Rathmullen, and we beat them 4-2, and to me that was as good a performance as we ever put in. Now Father Willie and Father Eddie and Patsy Sheridan would have been playing every night. They put in a great performance, but I'll just give you an idea of the team. Ernie McGarvey from Ramelton was the goalkeeper, and right back was my brother Joe from Buncrana, now he's living in Buncrana, and John Doherty from Thanet was the left back, and the middle 3 was James Kerr from Thanet was right half, I was centre half, and John Kelly from Rathmullen was left half. Now as you're reading the book, maybe, I'm not sure, but the forward line was something else, and the outside right was John Patton from Rathmullen, and inside him was Patsy Sheridan. The centre forward was Tommy Patton from Rathmullen, and inside left was James Doherty from Thanet, and outside left was Father Francis McAteer. And we beat a star-studded Derry team because it was basically made up of fellas who were playing senior football as well. It's true, we beat them well, and I don't apologise if Johnny was here, I'd be saying that too. But anyway, this was a team called Shelburne, and those of you that are of my vintage or near enough to it will know that Shelburne is a very, very successful team. And the digger was the manager of Shelburne, and he wasn't too happy at getting beaten in the Melton Cup, but we were very, very happy with that. As a matter of interest, I was expecting to see Jobby here tonight, and it's great to hear how Jobby was a very, very good footballer. He was the captain of Manchester City when they got promotion to the first division as it was then, and he played in Belgium a lot, and he was a real ambassador for Irish football at the time, crossing over to Belgium and playing there. And it's just a pity he can't be with us, but he's ill, so he can't be here. But again, I often heard my dad talking about the Crossons, and I'm sure he talked a lot about Eddie Crossan, and Eddie Crossan obviously was a brother of Jobby's. And I've known Jimbo Crossan myself, who was an older brother. He was playing centre half for Derry City at a time, and he wasn't a big man, but I can tell you one thing, not too many won footballs above him, because he had a great head of a ball. He could spring up there and head of a ball. Anyway, you listened to me for long enough, and basically I'm delighted to have been asked to come here and to launch this particular publication. I'm not a legend, I never was a legend, I never considered myself a legend. As far as Finn Harps are concerned, I was in the right place at the right time. I was lucky, I was playing in a great team, and we had great success. I suppose, you know, people are worrying now about Harps. Harps are relegated this season, which we're not happy about, but having said that, that's the way it goes. But in the time that we were there, let's say we played in Europe on 4 occasions. We won the FAI Cup, and we were runners-up 3 or 4 times in the league. 3 times actually in the league we were runners-up, and that's the one thing that sticks in my craw a little bit, is that we didn't win the league, because we were good enough to win it, but for some reason, against the superior teams like Cork Hibs and Waterford and Shamrock Rovers, we could beat them. But then some team like Home Farm or Shelburne today might take points off us, and that's why we lost the league. So we've nobody to blame but ourselves. And again, one man that's not here tonight, and that's Patsy. Patsy would be a good friend of mine too, as well as Father William, Father Eddie and Patsy Sheridan. And he contributed an awful lot to Rathmullen, Celtic, as well as to Finn Harps. And in actual fact, I talk to him very regularly. I talk to him every couple of months, and he's in good form, and I'm delighted about that. And unfortunately, as I say, Harps have gone down, but hopefully they'll come back up again. It's not going to be easy because it's difficult now to have a senior team, and it's difficult to get players to come and stay in Donegal. Ollie lost 10 or 11 players last season. I'm sure you're all aware of that. And he lost a football team really before last season. And last season, I just read in the paper a few days ago, this year Harps won 4 matches and in the whole season, and they got relegated. Now last year they won 11 matches and had 40 points, so that was a great display that year. They did very, very well. So basically, why did they not do as well this year? Well, out of that team that got those 40 points, 11 of the players left, so that's what you're up against really. So anyway, just to say thanks for the committee for inviting me here. I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted to see so many people that I know down through the years, and I no doubt that you'll be reminiscing about what's in that book, and you might even think about having to come back another night to discuss what's in it when you read it all, because there are a lot of stories in that book, I can assure you. So again, just to finish up, again, it was a privilege to play for Rathmullen Celtic in the Summer Cups, I can assure you, and I mean it when I say I got as much satisfaction out of winning a cup final in Milford or in Melton than anywhere else. So enjoy the rest of your night, and congratulations to the Heritage Group for what they've done, and Johnny in particular, and safe home to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. A wonderful account of your memories of the Summer Cups and indeed other things. I like the fact that introducing you, I made reference to the Milford Summer Cup semi-final and indicated that I didn't actually know what happened in the match which you came on, but you were quick enough to point out, even to the Letterkenny audience, that you beat Letterkenny Rovers in the semi-final. Second thing is, I have to say, is that you said you were in the right place at the right time. Well, having stood at Finn Park many a time in the 70s and been looking at the defence, it seemed to me that you were in the right place a lot of the time at Finn Park. So thank you very much, Jim. That was always a wonderful contribution to our evening. That is more or less it for our lunch. Again, thank you to our councillors for their generous support. Thank you to the other sponsors of this publication. I want to thank Liam Cutcliffe and the good people of Buncrana for bringing the Buncrana Summer Cup here. It was often the case that the Inishowen Summer Cups, I suppose the Summer Cups in general, ended up going to Derry more often than they stayed in Donegal. So it was nice to have one that came to Letterkenny. Councillor Donal Kelly will say a few words.
Thought I got away with there. I just want to start, ladies and gentlemen, you're all very welcome here as well. I see Councillors, Councillor McBride there, Councillor Bradley and Councillor Jimmy Kavanagh there as well. It's good to see a good attendance here tonight as well. I suppose before I do want to say too much, there's a lot been said, so I'm going to keep it very brief, but I just want to offer my condolences before I start to the Collins family on the sad passing of Liam Collins, a former Letterkenny Rovers member as well, that was sadly passed away and was buried there today. And I want to thank the Letterkenny Community Heritage Group for inviting me here today as well to say a few words. And I believe that this idea came up by Johnny Joe McCollum over the lockdown period, and I just had a flick through the book there very quickly. It's absolutely brilliant from what I've seen, Johnny, so fair pity, and think it deserves a round of applause. Thank you. See a lot of stories and photos there as well from the 1940s to the 1980s, and from the Kennedy Cup as well in Moville in the early 1960s. That's drew teams from all over, I believe, from as far as Scotland as well. And a prize fund at the time of £2,000, which back then, I'm sure, was a huge amount of money. You know, so you could see why they come from all over to play there, I suppose, and it was great to see so many talented men that played in them days here today as well, so you're all very welcome. We're on then, I believe, to the Buncrana Cup in the later years, and a pot there, £5,000 until that was ceased in 1995. Some very famous players, you know, like Man United and Celtic legend, Paddy Crean, and then it's great to see the special guests here as well, and Van Harp's captain, Jim Sheridan here as well, and it was great to hear Jim's story there. I was going to go on to it a bit, but no better man to tell it than yourself, Jim, so I'll leave it to you. But I suppose I'll just finish up by saying that we're delighted as county councillors along with Donegal County Council to support the Letterkenny Community Heritage Group year in and year out, and we'll continue to do that as long as we can. So again, enjoy your evening, and thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, our Mayor, Councillor Donal Kelly. So, one final thing, and Donal made reference to it there. There's a poem right near the end of the publication by John J. O'Donnell, and it's called "Dedicated to the Local Soccer Team, Black and Harps." Sadly, John J. O'Donnell died at a relatively young age, but we have included that poem partly, primarily to honour his memory, but also I think it's obvious that over the years many people who played in Summer Cups, and Councillor Kelly there made reference to Ian Collins, he's one of them. So it's also dedicated to all those who passed away, who played their part. Maybe not necessarily on a football pitch, maybe in organising it, maybe providing lifts, or indeed, like Jim Sheridan's mother, washing the jerseys. So it's dedicated to all those as well. So we hope you enjoyed the publication. Thank you so much for so many people coming, and thank you, Johnny Joe, for having the idea and executing it. Good night. Thank you. Point out that this book is still available for sale at the back of the hall.
It's over there. It's